Right, ladies and gents, we are on Free Friday Lunch webinar number 23. Can you believe it? It's great to have you today talking or covering the topic of improving my presentation skills. For those of you who don't know me, I head up the Southern African Leadership Development and Training Institute. And just briefly, a couple of housekeeping matters. Thanks once again for being here. Please mute or stay muted unless you want to ask a question at the end. Today is the exception. And funny enough, I'm presenting to you presentation skills. But like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to do it in a very brief, concise manner. I will probably aim for 30 minutes and then Q&A afterwards. So I do apologize if we overrun on time. But if you have to go, I do understand that. Please mail me if you want to be added to the standard monthly distribution list, or if you want a copy of the presentation or the recording rather. Otherwise, will be available in a week's time or within a couple of working days on our website. And please mail me with future topics. I, at some point, will run out of topics, and I would appreciate it if you can share with me what are the things that you want me to share with you as far as content is concerned. As always, I'm mentioning that I don't have the magic wand, but I'm here to give you different perspectives, different insights around the topics that we are covering, and in the hope that it will lead on your side and will pave the way to you living life differently better. So for those of you who have missed previous sessions, please go onto our website under Resources, Insights, and you'll see all the previous vlogs that are posted. As always, I invite you to reflect in terms of the content, how it applies to your life, and which of those subtopics specifically are the low-hanging fruit that you can focus on more in mastering this very important topic. I want to start off by saying it all starts here. It starts with self-confidence. We cannot present successfully in whatever form or shape that might be if we don't have self-confidence, specifically also in the topic that we'd like to convey to others, and also if we're not willing to get or step out of our comfort zones. I want to share with you the Dale Carnegie quote of, there are always three speeches. For everyone you actually gave, the one you practiced, the one you gave, and the one you wish you gave. So the point is, if you don't get it right, we always have thoughts afterwards of, I should have added this. Doesn't matter. We try and make it as perfect as we possibly can. And hopefully by what I'm going to share with you today, it will assist you in exactly that. At the bottom, and I picked this quote specifically because at the bottom it says Toastmasters. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the Toastmasters, it's been running for the last 100 years, believe it or not. And there are 14,000, try and get this, 14,200 clubs around the world in 148 countries of people that if you are finding presentation skills and presenting to people challenging, those clubs represent people that are like-minded to you. So you're not alone. And that's the point. I want to invite you that if you are struggling with presenting, if you find it a challenge, please join your local Toastmasters club. And for a nominal fee, you can get practice to become better at presentations. To me, and maybe just an opening thought, it's all about persuasion. It's all about how am I persuasive, and how do I get across my message that I want to land? How do I do that effectively and successfully? And in presenting to you today, in trying to condense a lot of content around this book specifically, The Exceptional Speaker, I am going to transgress a couple of my own rules in terms of what I'm going to want to convey to you. But given the time constraint, I'm a little bit between rock and a hard place. But I want to give you value for your money, so to speak. And I'm going to briefly cover all chapters of this book, and I'm going to add some of my own experiences as somebody that does presentations or do presentations for a living. Chapter 1, the visualization. Very important. I'm going to share with you this quote from the Dalai Lama. In order to carry a positive action, we must develop here a positive vision. And VAS, that acronym, is simply represents visualization, affirmations, and self-talk. And not only visualizing, and affirming success in the way that you're going to present, but also visualize and affirm what you want to include from a content point of view in terms of what you want to get across. And then very importantly, self-talk. Let that be positive. Let that be constructive for you to not only prepare properly, but also to land and be persuasive. Land the message you would like to land. Chapter 2 in the book talks about objective. Yogi Berra, the famous American baseball player, said, if you don't know where you are going, you'll end up somewhere or someplace else. You need to know where you're going with what you want to present, right? You need to answer the question, why are we here, ladies and gents? You need to put your purpose across and be clear on that. And have at least one objective that you want to get across and get people to take away after your presentation. People must not think about it, wonder about what did he or she actually try to convey today. And continuously, consistently to the end, carry through that one objective, that one message at least. Chapter 3 talks about preparation. You can't just wing it. Can't just wing it. You need to prepare. Critical. You never get a second chance to make an impression, right? And the book refers to 3 checklists for speakers, or 3 phases of preparation. First of all, it talks about early preparation. And to me, this is really the phase where you generate ideas. Long before I do presentations like these, I will walk my dog or wherever, think about something, and then add it to my notes in a file under the folder for this presentation or whatever presentation I need to do. Generating ideas, making sure those key things that I would like to include are included, in fact, when I do the presentation. And then before the event, very importantly, in a case like this where it's a formal presentation, I put all these thoughts into a PowerPoint presentation. And then very importantly as well, most importantly, when you arrive at the venue, make sure you arrive early. Make sure you go through your slideshow. Make sure that it actually works as you intended to work. 3 checklists for speakers. Chapter 4, ladies and gents, of the book talks about structure. Critical, make sure there's logical flow. Have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion at minimum. And bring in one idea at a time. Don't overwhelm your audience with 10 things that you're trying to convey at the same time. Bring in one idea for them to process, consume, and to actually persuade them as far as that's concerned. And leave handouts for last. Why? Well, it's quite simple. If we give handouts at the beginning, then people will start to page through it. You will lose their focus, their intention. And they will focus on your handouts as opposed to listening to what you're trying to convey to them. Chapter 5, rehearsing. Critical. Clark Peters said you need to make mistakes in rehearsal because that's how you will find out what works and what doesn't. You see, if we rehearse, it allows us to iron out mistakes. And I want to invite you to record your rehearsals. Because if we do, we can exactly see where we went wrong in order to address that when the real deal comes across and we do the actual presentation. Chapter 6 talks about connecting. And it's important to, also my experience, to speak to an audience, but focus your attention on one person at a time. And not only to that front row, and by doing that, getting all the other people that's part of your audience to feel excluded. Focus on one person at a time, but across your audience. It's a nice, effective tool to make sure that you connect. But like Chrissy Hine said, I don't wish or want to embarrass anybody. So don't only focus on one person and make them feel uncomfortable. Move around the audience. Engage with your audience. And spice it up. Ask questions, ask for comments throughout. Be at their level. Chapter 7 talks about content. Guy Kawasaki said, provide good content and you'll earn the right to promote your product, or in this case, your idea that you'd like to get across. And less is more. Yeah, right, Hekkie. You are steamrolling through the content. Yes, but today is the exception, if I might add. But in a general sense, top tip is don't overload. Less is more. And don't forget, you do have a time limit, right? You can't overstep that time limit. Typically, if you're at a conference. And I want to talk to you about citing and referencing. You and I, ladies and gents, can't afford to put thoughts across and claim it as if it's our own. No, we can't be guilty of plagiarism. And when you do cite recent sources, because time changed, right? And more so and more frequently so, unless you focus on seminal work. There are seminal pieces of research that you can always bring in. Doesn't matter which year it was published. Those groundbreaking pieces of information. And 5 things I want to share with you that will make your speech vulnerable to be wary of or to take note of is presenting outdated information. You don't want to be guilty of that. And one of your delegates, it's part of the audience, says, but hang on, that's not true. There are new developments. You don't want to present misinformation, right? Truism, stating the obvious. Don't go there. Don't waffle. That's what I tried to illustrate with that picture. And don't say things that are contradictory. Keep it fresh. And include things like sticking with the topic of keeping it fresh and spicing it up. Include things like video material, motivational quotes, case studies, stories, statistics. And then also, very importantly, especially in a virtual space, include survey tools like Mentimeter. Ask questions, get survey results, be interactive with your audience, which unfortunately I can't really do now. Again, using the excuse of got too much content that I'm trying to convey to you in half an hour. Chapter 8 talks about storytelling. Robert Brown said, storytelling is the most powerful way to put your ideas into the world today. And I agree with that. All of us love a good story, right? As long as it's relevant and as long as it's supporting my main theme, my objective, my key message that I want to get across. And let it be concise. Again, I've got a time limit. I need to be focused, laser focused. And by the way, there are no such thing as religious jokes you use in presentations or racist jokes because, frankly, those things are not jokes. Chapter 9 talks about delivery. Manny Grother said, words have incredible power. They can make people's hearts sore or they can make people's hearts sore. So it's critical that your message lands successfully. And rather overpromise or underpromise rather and overdeliver in terms of what you're conveying and getting across to your audience. And if you don't come across as if you really believe in what you're delivering, how do you expect me to be convinced in terms of the message that you want to get across? So there needs to be passion. You need to have high levels of confidence. And that also comes from experience and having experience in your topic that you are covering, which I'll get to now. And don't get sidetracked. I am so guilty of this. I really work on this in the way I present. My wife often tells me, just tell me what the message is. Just cut to the chase. Don't get sidetracked. And don't try and look clever by quoting all these different acronyms. There might be people in the audience that don't have your background. State the acronym, what it stands for. At least the first time you use it. Chapter 10 refers to questions. Ramon Bautista said the only stupid question is the question that's never been asked. And I absolutely agree with that. Make sure your audience understand that principle so they're not scared to ask you a question or two. Look at their body language. When we're in coaching, and I've got a couple of my coaching colleagues and friends that's part of today's audience, we are aware of the fact that we need to look at body language. And you can see standing in front and presenting, if it's a formal presentation, that somebody wants to ask you a question. Entertain that question then. And read the room, in other words. Read the room and see what people are telling you, but they don't verbally say to you. Ask for feedback. Ask for questions. That's the way you engage with your audience. That's the way you make the experience worthwhile. Now and later, and you can state that up front. We do have a time constraint like I've got today. Please let's field questions at the end. Or please throughout, when we get to an idea, you've got a question or concern, raise it. And let's hear it. Remember, ladies and gents, us being the presenters, always remember, feedback is the school books that we learn from. It's valuable insights, valuable input to us becoming better as presenters. Listen and learn. If somebody asks a question, especially somebody in a big audience that's sitting in the front, repeat that question so that everybody's aligned and on the same page. And teach, don't preach. Or instead of saying teaching, facilitating. Facilitate. That means you engage, you ask questions, you are the same level as your audience, you get their input, you ask for feedback. Chapter 11 talks about voice. Make sure there's inflection, there's pitch that you vary. You emphasize certain things. Your rhythm is right. You don't talk too quick or too slow, boring your audience to death. It's not monotonous. Be excited. Be passionate about what you're presenting once again. Chapter 12 talks about technique. Martha Graham said, great dancers are not great because of their technique. They are great because of their passion. Yes, fair enough. Technique is critical because it showcases your knowledge, confidence, and the ability that you have to communicate ideas effectively. It is important, very important. But I almost want to say to you that passion is more important. And part of technique might be those. Might be storytelling, high quality visual aids, the right body language, all those things that I've mentioned earlier. It should be included. But my message really to you here is stay true to yourself. See what works for you. Chapter 13, so important, fear. So many of us dread the thought of I have to present to people. You almost die of an ulcer a week or two before, right? There's a way of overcoming that. Mark Twain said, there are only two types of speakers in the world, the nervous and the liars. I do this for a living. I promise you, I don't have fear anymore, really, no. But there's always butterflies in my stomach before I do a presentation like this. It happens, it's normal. And tip number one to you from my side would be, in order to get over that fear, in order to address that fear, start very importantly with an appropriate joke, if you decide to do that, or ask a question. Ask a question to set the scene, because by doing that, you're taking the focus off you, and it allows you to relax and to settle in to your presentation. Remember, we all started crawling, walking, running, and hopefully now we are flying. What I want to make is, it takes practice. And I want to invite you to use the smallest opportunity, wherever, whenever. Might be at a 21st party. It might be at a farewell lunch at work for somebody that's retiring. Does anybody want to say something? Raise your hand. Say yes, please. Practice to present in whatever form of shape. Because by practicing, you get more confident. And by getting more confident, you are willing and able to present in bigger forums, to bigger crowds. Practice matters. If there's one area where practice matters, it's in presenting to people. And use electronic cue cards. My son was a debate and public speaking champion at school, at national level, and they used to have these cue cards, right? We don't use cue cards that often. We don't necessarily need to. If it works for you, that's fine. Where's my electronic cue cards? On my screen. Every one of these icons that you see as we go through my presentation represents a cue card. Use a tool like this to make it seamless. And just breathe. If everything else fails, just breathe. Pause. You think something goes wrong, and if you're in trouble, but do not stop. Just keep on having the momentum. Chapter 14 talks about visuals. Harvey Diamond said, if you don't know what you want to achieve in your presentation, your audience never will. And your visuals need to support what you want to achieve. Sight is probably the most important. Yes, hearing important, touch. If you can make the people smell what you want to try and convey to them, taste what you really want to get across, that's great. But it goes beyond eyesight. University of Houston got this on their website. You remember 10% of what you read, 20% of what you hear, 30% of what you see, and it carries on like that. Up to the point where you remember 95% of the things that you teach to other people, like I'm doing now. Try and get your audience to experience as much as possible in order to take away and remember what you try to convey to them. And the simple is better. Less is more. but personalize it. Make it your own. Don't try and copy somebody else. Make it unique to you, but be consistent. Don't present in this way now, totally different slides than you're presenting in 5 minutes time. Be consistent, I would like to suggest. Chapter 15, look the part. Marilyn Monroe said, I don't mind making jokes, but I don't want to look like one. Just the difference that a jacket makes. Look at that. You need to have the complete package. Now, when I ask you, you don't need to answer. We unfortunately don't have the time for that. We can talk about it at the end. Do you think that lady looks the part? Is she the complete package? And your immediate answer might be no. Well, it depends. Although if she has to present to a tattoo or a piercing conference, at a tattoo and piercing conference, she absolutely looks the part. So whatever your environment is, whatever your audience is, dress that part. Chapter 16, technology. Bill Gates said, technology is just a tool. In terms of getting the kids working together and motivating them, the teacher is most important. See the message I'm trying to get across to you? It's about you. It's about presenting in your unique way, making it real, making it authentic, having the confidence to do that. And all these other things are almost subtopics. Yes, they are important and relevant, but it's supporting information. But a part of getting technology right is to prepare, right? To use technology and test it. Know your tech. When I started using lapel mic, which I always use now because I had a handheld microphone because I seem like I come across like a MC, and to hold that and my clicker in my hand is difficult. So I have a lapel mic. But the first time I started using mine with my big boombox speaker, JBL, I made the mistake and I had the decibels wrong. And then I got sound feedback. And then I figured that out. And I obviously didn't have that issue anymore. But test and know your tech. Chapter 17, multi-generational audiences. Look at this Deloitte survey. Only 6% of organizations strongly agree that their leaders are equipped to lead a multi-generational workforce effectively. And in the light of mastering your presentation skills, you need to ask the question, am I meeting the individual needs of my audience? So there's no harm in trying to find out who's your audience in order to prepare to meet their individual needs. Chapter 18, expertise. We need to know our stuff, right? And even if we're not an expert and we get asked to talk or to present, at least be experienced. Why? Well, it's quite simple. If I have to present on pottery or dot art or knitting, I'll be dead in the water. If I ask my wife on the other end to present on any three of those topics, she's an expert. She'll do it without a blink. Be at least experienced in what you're presenting. And remember, there are other experts in the room. And make use of their knowledge and invite that. If somebody makes a comment, ask the guy or the lady, but please tell us more. Chapter 19 talks about troubleshooting. Make sure there's IT support, ladies and gents. And if you have an issue, call time out. Even ask for a comfort break of 2 minutes while you sort things out. Go with the flow. Don't let it flush. Don't let it throw you. Don't panic. Because you start panicking, you're screwed. And then what's that kind of message that you're getting across to your audience? Chapter 20, and I'm concluding. In my mind, in my experience, and we'll hear what you are saying just now, it's all about persuasion. It's all about getting your message across and making sure your message lands with impact. Make a positive impact around what you want to present and what you want to get across. And I think most importantly, last two things. Be yourself because everyone else is already taken. What Oscar Wilde said. And make it fun. Presentation should be fun. Make it fun, not only for you, but also obviously for your audience as well. I'm summarizing. And the idea is that we take action. That I want to invite you to remind yourself of the importance of growing your self-confidence and not be scared to present. Gain enough confidence not to be scared to present and be willing to step out of your comfort zone. Include the key elements in your presentations amongst those what I've shared with you today. Practice, practice, practice more by using each possible opportunity to present to people. You see, presentations have many forms. Might be a speech. It might be a virtual presentation like I'm doing now. It might be a meeting, right? Where I need to present something. Off the cuff, unprepared. Might be at a conference. Many forms of presentations. Number 4, see presentations as an opportunity to sell yourself and to sell your ideas. And I always want to add by saying to build your personal brand equity and get to a point where you really enjoy presenting. Because trust me, it's fun. Once you get to the point where you are prepared, you've got enough confidence, you start to get energy from presenting to other people. We all get certified to be some profession, to be technically proficient in some area. But only you and I, ladies and gents, in terms of what I'm presenting to you monthly, can certify ourselves from a soft skills point of view. You don't get a degree in mastering or improving your presentation skills. You need to certify yourself. And again, I want to emphasize, by practicing, 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 you'll get better at it. You'll master it. And you'll look back and think to yourself, check where I was 5 years ago. Look at me now. That, ladies and gents, is the end. I want to thank you for lending me your ears. And before we get to Q&A, please register for our next Free Friday Lunch webinar, or send me a mail if I need to add you to our standard or standard invitation list. October, we're presenting on how to be an effective mentor, mentoring the mentor effectively. Those are my details. Please invite me to be part of your LinkedIn network. I'll gladly accept your invitation. And on that note, I'm going to exit my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to ask you if you have any questions, comments, criticism. Now I can take a deep breath, because that was going through 80 slides, which I do not recommend if you present. But I wanted to give you the best, most possible bang for your buck in terms of getting content across to assist you to improve your presentation skills.
Hi, Hekkie. In your presentation, what amount of time should be allocated for questions? And if you do not have the answer on hand, how would you respond to that?
My simple rule would be 5% of the time, 5 to 10% of the time. And the point is, again, I was constrained by time today, but allow for enough. Normally I do 25 minutes of these content and try and allow for 5% of time, but allow typically 10% at the end of for Q&A in terms of total time. That would be my suggestion. If you don't know the answer, nobody's perfect. Okay, you've got a sea of experts in front of you. Don't be fake. Don't try and guess. Say, unfortunately, I don't know the answer. Is there anybody else that can assist? Why not? Right? Or I'll find out and I'll get back to you. And then make sure you do in terms of delivering on what you've promised. Thanks, Mia. Appreciate it. I hope that was useful. I'm not going to drag this out. I just want to say in closing, go Bokke. Hope you have a lovely, restful weekend. And I hope to see you on the 11th of October for our next Free Friday Lunch webinar. Thanks once again for lending me your ears, for your time. I wish you all the best success also in improving your presentation skills. Thank you very much.